Hi guys! In today's episode, I'm going to introduce a new segment called My First Time, all about our first knitting projects. So grab your knitting and let's go have some fun. Hi guys! Thanks for hanging out with me today. I am Jessie Pellet, also known as That MN Yarn Girl, and as you might have guessed, I live in Minnesota with my husband Milson, my 13-year-old son Thaden, our two lovely kitties Zuli and Mia. And today, guys, is Halloween. Happy Halloween! I don't know why I'm not in costume. I should have dressed up for this episode because Halloween is one of my favorite holidays. If you're a new viewer, I just want to say welcome, and if you are a returning viewer, I just want to say thank you so much. I really appreciate it every time you come back to hang out with me here. Just a little bit of administration before we jump right in. I do want to let you guys all know that my Waconia shawl is now ready for testing, and I have put that on the free pattern testing forum or group on Ravelry. So if you're interested in testing this, go ahead and check that out, and I would really appreciate that. Also, in today's episode, we are going to do things a little bit different. I've decided that I'm not going to do my knit flixing and knit happens segments every episode because I'm sure you guys have had enough of listening to me or ramble on about what TV I like to watch while I'm knitting. I would love to hear from you guys and hear what other people are knitting on and or watching when they're knitting. So please feel free to let me know, and I would be happy to share that. Also, I've just had a kind of a tough time of finding current events all the time that are related to knitting and fiber arts, but I will definitely keep an eye out for those, and I will still continue to share them as they come up. Also, I want to share with you my Rhinebeck Haul. I don't really plan on always sharing with you every new thing that I get, but because it was Rhinebeck, and if you got to see my Rhinebeck recap, I just thought you might like to see some of the items I purchased while I was in New York. So I will include that, but if that's not something you're interested in, I do plan on waiting until the very last segment for that. So if that's something you are interested in, go ahead and stick around. Finally, I want to introduce a new segment called My First Time. So let's get started with that. Remember our first, right? Our first knitting project, that is. In this segment, I like to feature knitters and their first projects, whether it be experienced knitters showing off what they very first did and maybe wanting to let us know how far they've come, or brand new knitters showing their very first project ever. So I will start with me because I don't think I've ever shared my first knitting project before. And this is not technically my first project because I think the very first thing I did when I was like 12, I learned how to do the knit stitch, and I just made like a Barbie blanket or something like that, but I never learned the purl stitch, and so it wasn't, and I just kind of lost it after that. So it wasn't until about 4 or 5 years ago when I was determined to pick it up again, and I knew I needed to learn the purl stitch. So I started off, I just decided to learn the purl stitch, and then I read something about the seed stitch, and I decided to go ahead and knit a scarf in the seed stitch. This was a terrible idea. I would not recommend that to anyone. I wanted practice of the purl stitch, which I did get a lot of, but oh my gosh, was it tedious, and especially going back and forth between knit and purl, and especially for the first time that I got back into it. Thank God I was determined to learn to knit, because I'm surprised I didn't put this down and never pick up knitting again, because it did take me forever. and I'm not even sure, I mean, I enjoyed it, but I didn't, I think. I enjoyed it, but at the same time, like I said, it was very tedious and just took a long time. So this is my first project. I don't even remember what the yarn is. I think it was something I picked up at Michael's. It was like a self-striping yarn. I'm sure it's acrylic. But it was, like I said, the first thing I kind of came back to, and I do love the color, so that did help. I can't say that I've really ever worn it because there's, I mean, it's not too bad, but there's definitely, like right here, I went from seed to like a ribbing stitch, and so it was just not the best, but still I love it as a fond memory of being my first knitting project when I got back into knitting. So that was my first. Guys, I do have a finished object. I've got some socks here. Yay! These were the socks that I made for Thaden. They ended up being, they were kind of a pain in the butt. I didn't really like them because I was using two different yarns here, and switching, I just wasn't thrilled with the switching yarns and striping in the round. It just, I didn't really have a great time with it. But I persevered and I finished them. And my original goal was to have them done, well, my original goal is to have them done forever ago. But then I kind of decided, okay, I'm going to have them done for Thaden's birthday, which was at the beginning of the month. And okay, I'm going to do like 1 or 2 stripes a day. And I did that, and I got pretty much done with them about 2 to 3 days beforehand. And then I still had to put in the afterthought heel, and I had never done that before. So then they kind of sat for a couple weeks because I procrastinated since I had to like kind of learn something new. When I learned how to do it, guys, it was so easy. I'm embarrassed that I procrastinated for so long because it was actually really, really easy. I did the thumb joint hat top heel. So I measured Thaden's thumb, which was 1 1/4 inches, and then you just knit in the round for that amount, and then you basically just decrease like you would like the top of a hat. So it was super, super easy, and like I said, I was kind of embarrassed that I let it sit for so long. But I got them done. They do seem to be a little bit big, but he doesn't mind, and he's 13, so I feel like even if they're big now, a year from now, they could be too small. So, and they're even a little bit big on this sock blocker I have because this is a medium, I think. And I have a feeling he's going to have a very large foot. So those are done, and he loves them, which is awesome. And just a recap of the yarns. This one is Pink Cadillac by AbacusDyeworks, and this one is Sun-Kissed by DippinDawns. And so those, like I said, those are complete and off the needles. Because I abhorred the process of putting in my own stripes, I thought, you know, so many people swear by socks. I'm not going to, I need to give socks one more shot, and I'm going to do it with self-striping yarn. So this is a new work in progress that I have, and this is going to be a sock for myself, my first socks for myself, and I decided to go toe up this time so that I could just, you know, knit until I decided that the cuff was long enough. Basically, I just want to be able to kind of decide the cuff length once I get to that point. So I started with a wedge toe, and this yarn is by Turtle Purl Yarns, and it is City Girl. She gives you 2 skeins so that two exactly matching skeins, 1 for each sock. And then you can also order a kit with like a contrasting heel and toe, a mini skein with contrasting heel and toe, which I did not do. I might do that next time. But so that is how far I've come on my first sock for myself. I like bringing socks along with me anywhere I go because they can fit in my purse, and then if I'm irritated at having to wait in line somewhere, I can just pull my sock out and I'm a little less irritated. So I am starting to become a little bit obsessed with the self-striping yarn of socks. I am still plugging away at my Harley sweater. I did work on it some at Yarnbeck, but I did not get finished with it. I am not going to go into great detail on this because you've already heard me blabber about it plenty if you've watched any of my previous podcasts. But this is the Harley sweater by Jenny Williams. The yarn is Malabrigo Dos Tierras in the colors Sunset, Flama, and Diana. Guys, I don't even remember where I was at. Normally I like to put a progress keeper on where I'm at the end of my podcast, and I clearly forgot to do that last time. So I don't remember where I was at, but as you can see, pretty close to finishing with the front side of the body. I just started the bottom ribbing, and I think maybe I had started a sleeve last time. I'm not sure. I had started a sleeve, but I had project merge and thought I was using size 3 needles and started my sleeve on size 3 needles. I got about a quarter of the way through and realized, no, I should be on a size 4 needle. So that wasn't very smart of me. It fit, but it was a little bit tight, and also I was concerned I would run out of yarn. So I decided I should just rip it back. So I ripped back the sleeve. But other than that, it's going pretty well. I'm really, really loving it and really, really loving the colors. So hopefully this will be done very soon so I can show it off as a FO finished object. So that's Harley by Jenny Williams. And that's really all I've got today for works in progress. Knitting, and it is not something to be scared of, and I don't want you to be scared of it either. So the Improve Along is the segment where I try to encourage everyone to try a new technique or improve their skills at a certain technique. This month the Improve Along is kind of broad. I had some issues with carpal tunnel earlier in the month, so it's just the Improve Along is just getting out there and trying some new stretches or trying a new technique or trying something to improve the health of your hands and your shoulders and all of those muscles that you need to knit. And then just go ahead and jump on the Ravelry thread and enter in the chatter thread on what it is that you are doing to try and improve your technique and take care of those hands and arms and everything so that you can continue to knit along as much as you want. I've watched a video by Staci Perry on what she calls flicking, and it's very similar to like Irish cottage knitting, or also known as lever knitting, and like using a knitting belt. Staci Perry does not use a knitting belt, but it looks like her technique is very similar, so I think you could kind of, maybe if you learned her technique, then it would be easier to incorporate a knitting belt later. I thought about ordering a knitting belt and trying it, but I just wasn't sure I was ready to invest in, it's not, because it would not just be the belt, you would have to have extra long needles, and just wasn't sure if I was ready to do that yet. I want to give her method a try and then see if it's something that I want to try, the knitting belt with the longer needles. But I don't want to start that in the middle of projects, because then obviously gauge can change. So I'm planning to just kind of try and finish off everything I've got right now on my needles so that I can start afresh with the new, like learning the new technique. So that's why I didn't really have a ton of works in progress, because I'm really just focusing right now on my sweater, and then like I said, I have like maybe 2 other projects I need to finish up so that I can like try a brand new way of knitting. Let us know what it is that you are doing to make sure that you take care of yourself and your body while you knit. It would be a great way to let other people know so that we can all try some of the same things. Alright guys, today in tips, tricks, and hacks, I want to talk to you about how to fix a twisted stitch. So I learned this while working on the Master Knitter certification, because I have tension problems, and so in order to fix those tension problems, when I'm switching from a knit stitch to a purl stitch, I have to purl that, bring my yarn under the needle rather than bringing the yarn over the needle. But then what that does is it twists the stitch when I'm coming back in the other direction. Stitches can get twisted for more reasons than just that. You know, sometimes if you're ripping back and you pull off a bunch of stitches and you put your needle back through, you can see that some of them get twisted, you know, or if you just maybe drop a couple stitches and you try to get it back on the needle, sometimes they can get twisted. And prior to doing the Master Knitter certification, prior to working on that, I used to always take my stitch. If I saw that it was twisted, I would take it off and then put it back on in the right way, which isn't the end of the world, but it can stretch out that stitch. And so the better way to do it, rather than taking it off the needle, is to knit through the back loop. So if your stitches are twisted, then you can just knit through the back loop instead of having to take it off and put it back on, which saves time and, like I said, doesn't stretch out your stitch. I want to show you a close-up because I want to make sure that you understand what I mean by having the stitch twisted. So you will notice that the way that this stitch is oriented on this needle, there are two legs, and the leg in front of the needle, this one here, is kind of leaning forward compared to the leg that is behind the needle, this one here. So this stitch is oriented correctly because this leg that's in front of the needle is kind of facing forward. So I'm going to knit that stitch and now show you that this one here is twisted, and you can tell because it is oriented differently in that the leg in back or behind the needle, this one here is the one that is kind of leaning forward compared to this one here that is in the front. So in order to make sure that this does not become twisted in our project, we will knit this through the back loop. Now that I have shown you the orientation of a knit stitch, I'm going to show you the orientation of a purl stitch, and it is actually pretty much the same. So again, you can see that the purl stitch again has the two legs, and the front leg is the leg in front of the needle here is leaning forward to the front, and the leg behind the needle is leaning more further back. And this again is a correct orientation. So I'm going to purl that. And then you will see that this, oh, I split that. Then you will see that this stitch is twisted because the leg behind the needle is kind of leaning forward, whereas the leg in front of the needle is leaning to the back of the stitch. So again, we're just going to purl this through the back loop. And that is how you can correct a stitch without having to pull it off the needles. Alright guys, it's finally time for my Rhinebeck haul. So I hope you watched my Rhinebeck recap video. I had so much fun at Rhinebeck and I met a lot of great people and I got a lot of lovelies. So let me tell you what I got. So the first day we went to Needles Up, and I didn't do a ton of shopping at Needles Up, but as I talked about in the works in progress and finished objects, I have discovered the magic of self-striping yarn. So I purchased some self-striping yarn that has a little bit of stellina in it for some sparkle. I got this from Fiber Nymph Dye Works, and I loved the greens and yellows, and like I said, a little bit of sparkle to that. That was a lot of fun. I almost picked out some fall colors, but as Milson reminded me, I wouldn't necessarily want to be knitting on fall colors in a month or two when I might have time to cast on my next pair of self-striping socks. So I went with something a little bit more all year round friendly, and I do love it, and I am excited to get going on all of the self-striping socks that I'm going to be making. The other thing I purchased at Needles Up was a bag from Fat Squirrel Fibers, a project bag, and you can see it's already had some love. I did use it for hauling my sweater around while I was at Rhinebeck. I had not brought my project bag for my sweater along with me because I think I put it on in my carry-on, and I was a little bit worried about having room to bring stuff back and things like that. So I had just kind of carried my sweater along in my carry-on, but then I decided that I really did need, after I purchased this, I was like, I really do just need to make sure my sweater is in a bag. And so I started using this right away, and I love it because it has kitties, and I love kitties. So this is a beautiful bag by Fat Squirrel Fiberworks. Love that very much. Then the next day was Rhinebeck, and I made a purchase of some Angora. I have never done anything with Angora before, and it is so soft. I just want to rub it against my face. I absolutely love it. So, and I just love these colors too, with the pinks and the bluish green, the teal colors. Like these are like my favorite colors right here. And so I was really excited to find this. Also find stuff from them at angoraonline.com. And like I said, this is just super soft. It's 60% merino, 10% nylon, and 30% Angora. I think this is probably going to become, like, it's soft yarn, but I feel like it just would be such a super comfy, cozy winter hat. So I think that's what that might become. I don't know. We'll see. Next at Rhinebeck, if you saw my recap video, I was trying to decide on the color work, and my husband Milson clearly did not care about the colors of this yarn that when I was trying to pick it out. He was not much help. But this is by Caradan Farm, I think. I'm not sure. I should ask how you pronounce it. And it's in their Chincoteague colors, which, again, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but that must be, because all of these are inspired by a body of water. It says the Chincoteague waters can be angry, can be calm, can be whipped into white caps and smooth as glass. The beauty of the colors is captured in this colorway. So these are all like beach themed. This is the waters, this is Conch Beauty, and then this one is Sand Spit. And I just feel like, and they're absolutely gorgeous. It's, what is it? 70% alpaca and 30% silk. So, oh my God, they're just like absolutely super, super soft and luxurious. And I think that with these three colors together, they would make a gorgeous shawl. So I think that's what those are going to become. Then on Saturday night, I went to Jill Draper Makes Stuff, and I purchased a kit because, as I had mentioned in my previous podcast, I do want to make was it called I can't remember now. I will pop it up below. It was like the boardwalk shawl, was it? Something? I don't know. I'll pop it below. But I really want to make that one. And so I wanted to get a kit with some different colors, so you can see those all here. And this is her Mohawk Light, and it's a nice, like, it's a very woolly wool. I just really like it. It's 100% lamb's wool, and I think it will make a great shawl. So I'm excited to work on that shawl. And then finally, what I got at Rhinebeck, this was on Sunday. I shopped for a while on Sunday until I found like the perfect place that I wanted to get my sweater's quantity worth of stuff. I kind of shopped, and then I went back to the place that stuck out in my mind, which was Foxhill Farm. And this is 20% silk and 80% Corma wool. And I love this. It's like soft and squishy, and I just feel like it's going to make a perfect sweater. I'm super excited. And like they don't have a website online, so I just feel like this is such a good, unique yarn that I purchased. You know, it's from they're located in Massachusetts, so it's an East Coast farm, and I'm just really excited to be able to make a sweater, hopefully for next year's Rhinebeck, out of this wonderful wool. So those are all of the items that I purchased at Rhinebeck. I had so much fun. If you haven't watched my recap video yet, please do so. It was a great time. If you're on the fence about ever going to Rhinebeck, just do it. It's overwhelming because there's so many people and so much yarn, but it is so much fun. So, but that is all I have for today. Guys, that is all I've got for today, but thank you so much for coming to hang out with me. You have no idea how much it means to me when you watch my videos. I really, really appreciate it. And if you like what you saw here today, please like, subscribe, and comment below. You can also find me on Instagram, Ravelry, and Facebook, all as That MN Yarn Girl. And that is all I've got for today, so I will leave you with a picture of some cats and hats. Bye!